Welcome to the Does This Happen to You podcast, where we explore the funny side of truth is stranger than fiction stories. Our story this week is from Joel Zachary Down, who you'll find on medium.com. And here is Flying Chihuahua Hidden Cat. No pets were harmed during the writing of this essay. When the locksmith arrives, I have a Chihuahua in one hand, a kilo of dog food in the other, and there's a dehydrated Doberman lying at my feet. Next to me is Merlin, a 6-foot-tall Australian guy who leapt to my rescue, wielding a screwdriver and a paperclip. Our bargaining position feels decidedly weak, but Merlin assures me we're going to haggle. This is coastal Barcelona. If I concentrate, I can hear the sea rushing against the shore, and the door in front of me is not my own. But wait, how did we get here? 2 weeks prior, I was sitting in a language school learning how to talk about routines and hobbies when my classmate turned to me with an offer of employment. Wow, I thought. She must have been really impressed with my sophisticated questions. "What you like do at weekend?" I had asked, murdering the present simple. "Oh, only escalada," she replied, using a word meaning rock climbing that to a beginner's ear sounded suspiciously like ensalada. "What do you do to unwind?" "Salads." Sarah needed me to watch her house for the weekend while she and her fiancé eloped to Amsterdam, leaving me in charge of their pets. The job sounded perfect, dreamy. I could hardly believe that she was asking me, a 23-year-old hostel receptionist, to take custody of the closest thing she had to children. So I jumped at the opportunity, assuming it would be a breeze. How wrong I was. Scene of the crime. Sarah's apartment had everything that my adopted home did not: Netflix, sea views, an oven. While I daydreamed about the privilege of not having to cook a pizza in a frying pan, she introduced me to the pets. In front of us were 2 affectionate dogs and a deceptively docile cat that slunk in and out of my legs while we talked. The Chihuahua, it turned out, was completely blind, his eyes the color of the Milky Way. "You might need to carry him if he gets tired," Sarah explained. I eyed up the Doberman and wondered if he had a tendency for tiredness too. Walking me to the hall, Sarah adopted a serious tone. "Just remember one thing. The front door locks automatically. Please don't leave without the keys." At that point, the cat dug her teeth into my calf. "Ow!" I shrieked. Indifferent to her pet's behavior, Sarah pried Vlad the Impaler off the lower part of my leg and repeated the most important rule of the job. Got it, I thought. Don't forget the key. Stay away from the cat. A misplaced leap of faith. At the tail end of one of the deepest sleeps I'd had in months, my alarm went off. It was an unconventional one because it sounded like a Doberman barking at the top of his voice. Eyes half open, I rolled off the top of the bunk bed, pulled on my clothes, grabbed both dogs, and walked out of the door. "Are you going to trust me this time?" I asked the Chihuahua, who needed to be airlifted into and out of the elevator, otherwise he'd trip and fall through the gaps. I mean, how much more adorably helpless can you get? Normally, he would kick his legs out in protest and look like he was on the receiving end of a none too pleasant wedgie. So it was a big moment when he voluntarily crawled into my palm instead. The experience appeared to have lightened his step. Once out of the lift, I watched on as he ran towards the outside world, gathering speed like a tiny plane on a Red Bull runway. which would have been fine if he hadn't launched himself straight into a wall. Thwack! The Doberman winched. My stomach flipped. But Paco the Chihuahua was a tough little cookie. He rebounded off the concrete, shook his head, and decided to act as if nothing had happened. Relieved, we welcomed him into a collective cuddle. Then we were on the march again, and this time with the hopes of making it beyond the lobby. Uneasy like Sunday morning. By now I'd been on the job for 12 hours, so I knew where to take the dogs, when to rein them in, how to take compliments on their behalf. "Aren't you a good boy?" people would say. "Yes," I would reply. "Yes, I am." As far as I was concerned, this was just another glorious Sunday morning in the middle of September. The sun beat down on the beach and sparkled over the Mediterranean waves as we weaved in and out of the crowds. It wasn't until we walked back across the perfectly trimmed lawns surrounding Sarah's building that it hit me. I had violated rule number 1 of Dog Club. Do not forget the key. What followed was panic, confusion, a lot of running around in circles, and that was just the Chihuahua. I emptied my pockets. I retraced my steps. I tried to remember the moment before I shut the door and found that my hard drive had been wiped. Have I lost the key or left it behind? The answer was mostly irrelevant, seeing as I was now looking up at a second-story window, wishing that I had asked Sarah for a climbing tutorial or a spare set of keys before she left. I texted her on her emergency number, but she didn't respond. Then I noticed that my battery was about to die. Realizing that nobody had been fed, I stretched the final percentage to finding a pet store, a cafe, and a phone shop. Milestones on a journey that seemed to unfold at the speed of sloth. Crawling from shop to shop under intense midday heat, I began to comfort myself with positive affirmations. God, you're such a moron. This was your one chance to gorm out in front of a flat-screen TV for as long as humanly possible. You could have slept all day if you wanted to. You could have read a novel. But instead, here you are, feeding complex carbohydrates to a couple of confused canines. Paco and Taco wagged their tails in sympathy. The Wizard of Oz. Who do you call in a time of crisis? Besides the police, a lawyer, or Liam Neeson? In my case, the answer was a slightly immature but kind-hearted Aussie who was in the midst of his "I'm immortal" era. Merlin, a colleague from the hostel, had once crashed a motorbike into a small forest. Never one to do 50 in a 60-mile-per-hour zone, he lost control of the bike, run it through the trees, and yet emerged completely unscathed. Now I needed him to perform the same miracle on a large wooden door. "Can I have a shower first?" he asked, as if I was in control of his ablutions and cleanliness had anything to do with breaking a door down. No, I thought. Time is very much of the essence here. "Yes," I said, hoping he could read minds as well as lock-picking manuals. Some 2 hours slipped by while Merlin took a shower, went to the barber's, got a manicure, perused a tattoo catalog, and contemplated not coming at all. When he did show up, it was a relief to see a friendly face, even if that face soon turned pale. "The problem we have here," Merlin explained, allowing the tension to build as he rattled the door, "is that this lock cannot be picked." "I see," I replied. What I really saw was that he'd brought a screwdriver to a knife fight. I had to admit, the kipper-shaped keyhole did strike me as pretty much foolproof. We were the fools, and here was the proof. "We've got 2 options. Either you take the dogs to the hostel for the night and don't tell our manager, or you call a locksmith. While the first was a definite story in the making, the second felt more practical, and it taught me a valuable lesson. When in doubt, call someone else to fix your problems. When that doesn't work, keep calling until a professional picks up. Well, that was easy. An apex predator pouncing on weakened prey, the locksmith asked a few questions and wasted little time. Cash or card was his version of small talk, which would have been refreshing had it not felt faintly like extortion. You can pay me now, his face said, or I'll get one of the Lopez brothers to beat it out of you. After taking my money, he dispatched with the past 8 hours of existential agony, using only a few swift movements and a piece of bendy plastic. The door popped open like a Pringles can while I stood, slack-jawed, unsure if I should feel impressed or angry. That's a lie. I just felt angry. That he had made a show of presenting us with all of his expensive tools, that he had asked me to pay him 120 euros, then knocked it down to 90, and that he didn't have the decency to look bashful about it, told me that he had seen an opportunity and seized it. Well, that was easy, I said, with as much sarcasm as my level of Spanish would allow. Claro. But you pay for my experience, he shrugged. What experience was this, if not the most expensive 3 seconds of my life? I soon realized that the price was more than justified by the sense of relief that rushed through my body as the dogs and I scrambled through the door. It is a matter of meters, yet being locked out and coming home may as well be continents apart. Collapsing onto the sofa, the pets and I were exhausted but euphoric, triumphant yet humbled, and about to realize that we'd misplaced the cat. In keeping with her vampiric character, she seemed to have vanished into thin air. I couldn't find her in any of the places I assumed a cat would hide, from the laundry basket to the window ledge. Fuck it, I thought. I'm not cut out for this. So I chucked the keys at Merlin and left him to launch a missing pet campaign. "Where are you gone, mate?" he hollered after me. "Hostel," I replied. A place with no boundaries but very clear rules. Chief among them, no pets allowed. Thanks for listening. I'm Chris Kepler, and I hope you enjoyed listening to these stories as much as I enjoyed narrating them. I'd love for more people to hear these wonderful stories, so please share and tell your friends.